In Silicon Valley, a single mother scrubbing her third office of the day discovered a hidden server humming behind a locked door. Wendy Davidson wasn't your typical cleaner. 8 years ago, she'd abandoned her computer science degree when pregnancy derailed everything. Using half-remembered security protocols, she accessed files worth $315 million and ignited a war against billionaire venture capitalists. What began as curiosity became a fight for justice that risked her daughter's safety and exposed how some tech fortunes are built on theft. Wendy Davidson's hands were raw by 6:47 a.m. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She'd already scrubbed 2 office bathrooms at a startup in Mountain View, vacuumed 3 floors of cubicles at a consulting firm in Palo Alto, and now stood before the Nexus Dynamics building with her 3rd industrial-strength bucket of the morning. The fog rolled thick off the bay, turning the abandoned glass tower into something spectral. 3 years sealed. That's what the property management email had said. Her phone buzzed. Claudia again. Can you get Emma today? Double shift. Wendy's thumb hovered over the screen. She'd already coordinated drop-off at 5:30 this morning. Emma's sleepy face pressed against the car window as they'd driven through darkness. Her daughter had asked why the stars were still out. Wendy hadn't known how to explain that some people's days started before dawn ended. I'll figure it out, she typed back. The building's main entrance required a code. The property manager had sent it, 6 digits that felt like accessing a tomb. The glass doors whispered open, and stale air rushed out. Wendy stepped inside. Dust particles danced in the morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. The reception desk still had a coffee mug beside the keyboard. A fern, long dead, sat in its decorative pot. Wendy's worn sneakers squeaked against marble floors that probably cost more than her annual rent. She moved through the first floor, cataloging what she'd need. The space felt frozen mid-motion, like everyone had simply vanished during a normal workday. Ergonomic chairs, the expensive kind she'd seen advertised for $1,200, sat tucked under standing desks. Whiteboards covered in half-erased equations and flowcharts lined the walls. Someone had written, "Launch Day," with 3 exclamation points, the enthusiasm still visible in the bold marker strokes. Wendy pulled out her supplies. Industrial cleaner, microfiber cloths, trash bags. The contrast wasn't lost on her. She was using dollar store rags to clean spaces where people had burned through millions. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, expecting Claudia. Instead, Emma's report card fell from her cleaning bag where she'd tucked it this morning. Ms. Hoffman's note was paper-clipped to the top. Wendy, Emma is doing wonderfully in science and reading. However, I've noticed her shoes are worn through at the toe. Winter's coming. If you need resources, please let me know. No judgment. Sarah, the words blurred. Wendy shoved the report card back into her bag, blinking hard. Emma's shoes. She'd noticed too. Her daughter had stopped asking for things months ago, after Wendy had explained they needed to be smart with money right now. Emma had nodded with the solemn understanding of a child who'd learned too young that wanting cost too much. Wendy climbed to the 2nd floor. More of the same. Abandoned dreams in expensive packaging. She worked methodically, wiping down surfaces, emptying 3-year-old trash, trying not to think about the fact that the chairs she was dusting cost more than she made in a month. The CEO's office sat at the building's corner. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 sides. A view of the bay that probably looked spectacular when fog wasn't turning the world gray. The desk was massive, some kind of reclaimed wood that weighed more than her daughter. A photo frame sat face down. Wendy didn't turn it over. Some ghosts deserved privacy. She was wiping down the bookshelf when she noticed it. The shelf sat slightly crooked. Not much, maybe a 1/4 inch off from the wall. Wendy's community college instincts kicked in before her exhaustion could stop them. She'd taken enough computer science classes before Emma came along to recognize what didn't belong. Bookshelves in CEO offices didn't sit crooked unless they served a purpose. She pressed against the shelf's edge. It gave slightly, catching on hidden hinges. Behind it, a door. Small. Unmarked. The kind of door you'd only find if you were looking. or cleaning thoroughly enough to notice architectural inconsistencies. The handle was locked. Of course it was locked. Wendy should have walked away, should have finished her cleaning, collected her $200, and moved on to her afternoon shift at the medical building in Sunnyvale. Instead, she knelt down, examining the electronic lock. It was old, at least by tech standards. The kind of system she'd learned about in her security systems elective, back when she'd believed she'd finish her degree, back when her future looked different than industrial cleaner and raw hands. The lock had a bypass function. They all did. Maintenance access for when executives forgot their codes or IT needed emergency entry. She just needed to find the override panel. Wendy's fingers traced the door frame. There, a slight depression in the metal. She pressed it. The panel popped open, revealing a small keypad. Her mind reached back through 8 years of abandoned education, pulling up half-remembered lectures about default security protocols. She tried the standard manufacturer default. 0-0-0-0. Nothing. She tried the building's address numbers. Nothing. Then she remembered these systems often used date codes. Installation dates. She pulled out her phone. Googling Nexus Dynamics founded. She entered 2-0-1-9. The lock clicked. Green light. Wendy's heart hammered. She was technically trespassing now. Breaking and entering, maybe. But something pulled her forward. Curiosity that had been dormant so long she'd forgotten it existed. The door opened onto a small room. Not even a room. Closet. But inside, mounted on reinforced shelving, sat a single server. Its lights blinked in steady rhythm. Green. Amber. Green. Still powered. Still running. How was it still running? Wendy stepped closer. The server hummed softly, a sound like breathing. Someone had kept this system alive while everything else died. Someone had made sure this survived. Her phone buzzed. Claudia. Seriously, can you get Emma or not? Need to know now. Wendy typed back. Yes, I'll get her. She turned back to the server. A small monitor sat beside it, powered down but functional. She pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, displaying a login prompt. This was where smart people walked away. This was where people who played by rules and understood their place in the world said, "Not my business," and closed the door. But Wendy had spent 8 years playing by rules that kept her poor and exhausted, and watching her daughter's shoes wear through. And here, in this abandoned building full of expensive equipment and broken dreams, something about this hidden server felt important. She tried the same code, 2-0-1-9. Access denied. Wendy thought back to her classes, to Professor Martinez, who'd taught them that people were predictable. Passwords were often personal. Companies often used project names, founding principles, mission statements. She Googled Nexus Dynamics mission statement. Building bridges to tomorrow. She tried BRIDGES. The system logged in. Wendy's hands trembled as the interface loaded. Folders. Hundreds of them. But one was labeled differently than the others. Not a typical file name. Just 2 words. Project Sentinel. She clicked it. The folder opened, revealing layers of encrypted files. Technical documentation. Source code. And emails. Dozens of emails with subject lines that made Wendy's breath catch. Forced restructuring strategy. Acquisition timeline. Confidential valuation report. $315 million. Wendy's phone buzzed again. She ignored it. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, opening files, her rusty technical knowledge sparking back to life. She couldn't read the encryption, but she could see the file structures, the organization, the careful way someone had documented everything. This wasn't forgotten equipment. This was insurance. She pulled a USB drive from her keychain, a cheap thing she used for Emma's school projects. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Downloading this was theft. Probably. Maybe. She didn't know enough law to be sure, but she knew enough about power to understand that people didn't hide servers behind secret doors unless they were hiding something that mattered. She started the download. The progress bar crawled forward. 2%. 5%. 12%. Her phone buzzed constantly now. Claudia, her afternoon client confirming she was coming. A reminder about Emma's parent-teacher conference next week. 30%, 45%, 67%. Wendy's eyes caught on one email subject line visible in the preview window. Web doesn't know. Proceed as planned. VK 89%, 94%, 100%. Download complete. Wendy pulled the USB drive, pocketed it and logged out. She powered down the monitor and backed away from the server. The lights continued their steady rhythm. Blinking, breathing, waiting. She closed the door. The lock clicked shut. She pushed the bookshelf back into place, the slight crookedness now looking intentional rather than accidental. Her hands shook as she picked up her cleaning supplies. She'd been in the building for 2 hours. She had work to finish, bathrooms to scrub, floors to mop, the mundane reality of her life waiting to resume. But the USB drive in her pocket felt heavy, heavier than it should, like it contained something more than data, like it contained questions she didn't know how to ask and answers that might change everything or destroy everything or both. Wendy finished her cleaning in a daze. She worked mechanically, her mind spinning through possibilities she didn't fully understand. The building was just as empty when she left as when she'd arrived. A ghost building, a tech tomb, a monument to dreams that died overnight. She stepped out into the parking lot. The fog had lifted slightly, revealing gray sky instead of gray air. Her van, 12 years old with a check engine light she couldn't afford to investigate, sat where she'd left it. But across the street, where there had been nothing when she arrived, a black SUV now sat parked. Tinted windows, engine running, judging by the exhaust in the cool morning air. Wendy's hand tightened around her cleaning bucket. She walked steadily to her van, forcing herself not to look back. She loaded her supplies, started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot with practiced casualness. In her rearview mirror, the black SUV remained motionless. But she knew what surveillance looked like. She'd seen enough crime shows, read enough news articles about tech corporate espionage, and she understood, with sudden crystalline clarity, that whatever she'd found in that server room, someone else knew it existed. Someone else was looking for it, and she'd just made herself visible. The USB drive sat on Wendy's kitchen table like an accusation. She'd picked up Emma at 3:15, the school pickup line stretching around the block as usual. Her daughter had climbed into the van with paint on her sleeve and a papier-mâché solar system that immediately shed Jupiter onto the floor mats. Emma had talked the entire drive home about Ms. Hoffman's science lesson on gravity, her 8-year-old enthusiasm filling the spaces Wendy's exhaustion left empty. Dinner had been mac and cheese, the box kind, not the fancy stuff. Emma had done homework at this same table while Wendy folded laundry and tried not to calculate how many loads she could afford at the laundromat this month. Bath time. Teeth brushing. 3 stories because Emma had negotiated expertly, using logical arguments about how learning required proper brain development which required adequate story exposure. Now it was 10:47 p.m. Emma slept in the bedroom they shared, her breathing steady and soft, and Wendy sat alone in their cramped apartment kitchen, staring at a thumb drive that might contain nothing or everything. Her laptop was old. The fan made concerning noises when it worked too hard. She'd bought it refurbished 4 years ago, back when she'd still harbored vague ideas about maybe, someday, finishing her degree online. Wendy inserted the drive. Her hands trembled slightly. The files loaded slowly. Her internet connection, the cheapest package available, crawled through the data like it was moving through mud. Encrypted folders appeared on screen. Dozens of them, all labeled with technical designations that meant nothing to her at first glance. But one folder wasn't encrypted. Someone had left it accessible, almost like they'd wanted it found. She opened it. Email chains. Hundreds of them. She started reading, her eyes scanning subject lines and sender names. Vanessa Cade appeared again and again. CEO correspondence. Board meeting minutes. Financial projections. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Wendy clicked on an email dated 3 years ago. From Vanessa Cade to board members Nexus Dynamics acquisition strategy. The target is vulnerable. Webb doesn't understand the capital requirements for scaling. We manufacture a Q3 crisis, force emergency funding, dilute his equity to nothing, and execute the takeover by November. The AI system alone is worth $315 million. Webb and Kong won't see it coming. Wendy read it again. Then a third time. She opened another email. From Marcus Webb to Vanessa Cade Q3 funding emergency. Vanessa, I don't understand what happened. Our projections showed stable runway through Q4. Why are our accounts suddenly frozen? Our developers haven't been paid in 2 weeks. Please call me. The response came 3 days later. Marcus, this is why operational experience matters. The board has lost confidence. We need to discuss restructuring options. VK Wendy's stomach tightened. She'd watched enough true crime documentaries to recognize a con. This was a con. Corporate level, sophisticated, wrapped in legal language, but still a con. She clicked through more files. Technical documentation appeared, source code for something called Sentinel AI. She couldn't fully understand it, but she recognized the architecture. Natural language processing, machine learning models, the kind of system that tech companies paid billions for. Evaluation report loaded on screen. Third-party analysis, independent auditors. Sentinel AI system, conservative valuation. $315 million. The number sat there, casual and enormous. More money than Wendy would earn in 10 lifetimes of cleaning offices. More money than everyone she knew would earn combined. Hidden in a server room while she scrubbed toilets in the building above it. Her laptop fan whirred louder. The decryption software she'd found in the files was working through the protected folders. Slowly, her connection kept stuttering, but data was extracting. Wendy opened another email chain. From David Kong to Marcus Webb. Something's wrong, Marcus. I've been going through the financials. The Q3 crisis doesn't make sense. Our accounts were solvent. Someone moved money. I can see the transfers but can't trace the destination. I think Vanessa is. The email ended there. No response from Marcus. No follow-up from David Kong. She searched for David Kong online. Tech news articles appeared. Nexus Dynamics CTO missing. Federal investigation into tech startup collapse. Former exec believed to have fled country. Fled. Or hiding. Wendy's phone buzzed. Claudia, you okay? You were weird today. Wendy typed back, fine. Tired. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You're always tired. That's not the same as fine. Wendy didn't respond. She turned back to the laptop. More emails loaded. Board meeting minutes showing how Vanessa had systematically stripped Marcus of authority. Legal documents transferring intellectual property rights. Patent filings under Cade Ventures' name for technology David Kong had developed. It was all there. The entire theft, documented in corporate language that made it sound legitimate. A bedroom door creaked. Wendy's hand flew to the laptop screen, angling it away from view. Emma stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Her pajamas, hand-me-downs from Claudia's kids, hung loose on her small frame. Mommy? Why are you still awake? Wendy forced brightness into her voice. Just finishing some paperwork, sweetie. Go back to bed. What kind of paperwork? Emma padded closer, her curiosity as natural as breathing. Wendy closed the laptop slightly. Boring adult stuff. Bills and things. Emma's face fell. She understood bills. She understood that bills meant mommy got stressed and the apartment got quiet and sometimes there wasn't money for field trips. Are we okay? Emma's voice was small. The question hit Wendy in the chest. 8 years old. She should be asking about dinosaurs and astronauts, not whether her family was financially stable. We're okay, Wendy said. She pulled Emma into a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of cheap shampoo. We're always okay. Promise. Ms. Hoffman said I need new shoes. I know. We'll get them this weekend. Wendy had no idea how she'd afford them, but that was a problem for tomorrow's version of herself. She tucked Emma back into bed. waiting until her daughter's breathing evened out again. Then she returned to the kitchen, to the laptop, to the impossible choice spreading across her screen. She could delete everything, pretend she never found it, go back to cleaning offices and stretching grocery budgets and pretending exhaustion was the same as fine. Or she could do something, report it, expose it, use it. The thought scared her more than the surveillance SUV had. Using it. What did that even mean? She didn't know lawyers, didn't know reporters, didn't know anyone who operated in worlds where $315 million was a number people actually dealt with. She took a screenshot of the most damning emails, saved them to a separate folder, created backups. Her old computer science training kicked in redundancy, distribution, protection. At 2:33 a.m., her laptop pinged. New email notification. The sender address was encrypted. Random characters. The subject line made her blood freeze. I know you accessed the server. We need to talk. Come alone. DK. Below the message was an address. A motel on the outskirts of San Jose. And a time? Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Wendy stared at the screen. David Kong. The missing CTO. Not missing. Hiding. And somehow, impossibly, he knew she'd found his insurance policy. Her hands shook as she closed the laptop. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. The walls closer. Every shadow in her apartment looked different now, like they might contain cameras or microphones or evidence that she'd stumbled into something far beyond her understanding. She thought about Emma sleeping in the next room, about the shoes they needed to buy, about the medical bills still unpaid from Emma's strep throat last month, about the future she'd promised her daughter, stable, safe, better than this. And she thought about that number, $315 million. Hidden, stolen, waiting. Wendy pulled the USB drive from her laptop and held it in her palm. It weighed nothing, but somehow it felt heavier than anything she'd ever carried. Tomorrow she had 2 cleaning jobs. Emma had school. Life would continue its exhausting routine. But at 8 p.m., she'd drive to that motel. She'd meet a man the tech world thought had vanished. She'd walk into something she didn't understand, carrying evidence of a crime she'd accidentally uncovered. Because maybe, just maybe, being invisible her whole life had been preparation for this. For being the one person powerful people wouldn't see coming until it was too late. The Starlight Motel looked like every bad decision Wendy had ever made. Neon flickered against cracked stucco. The parking lot held 3 cars, all older than hers. Room numbers hung crooked on doors that had seen better decades. From Marcus Webb to Vanessa Cadre. Q3 funding emergency Vanessa? I don't understand what happened. Our projections showed stable runway through Q4. Why are our accounts suddenly frozen? Our developers haven't been paid in 2 weeks. Please call me. The response came 3 days later. Marcus, this is why operational experience matters. The board has lost confidence. We need to discuss restructuring options. VK Wendy's stomach tightened. She'd watched enough true crime documentaries to recognize a con. This was a con. Corporate level, sophisticated, wrapped in legal language, but still a con. She clicked through more files. Technical documentation appeared, source code for something called Sentinel AI. She couldn't fully understand it, but she recognized the architecture. Natural language processing, machine learning models, the kind of system that tech companies paid billions for. Evaluation report loaded on screen. Third-party analysis. Independent auditors. Sentinel AI system, conservative valuation. $315 million. The number sat there, casual and enormous. More money than Wendy would earn in 10 lifetimes of cleaning offices. More money than everyone she knew would earn combined. Hidden in a server room while she scrubbed toilets in the building above it. Her laptop fan whirred louder. The decryption software she'd found in the files was working through the protected folders. Slowly, her connection kept stuttering, but data was extracting. Wendy opened another email chain. From David Kong to Marcus Webry. Something's wrong, Marcus. I've been going through the financials. The Q3 crisis doesn't make sense. Our accounts were solvent. Someone moved money. I can see the transfers but can't trace the destination. I think Vanessa is. The email ended there. No response from Marcus. No follow-up from David Kong. She searched for David Kong online. Tech news articles appeared. Nexus Dynamics CTO missing. Federal investigation into tech startup collapse. Former exec believed to have fled country. Fled. Or hiding. Wendy's phone buzzed. Claudia, you okay? You were weird today. Wendy typed back, fine. Tired. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You're always tired. That's not the same as fine. Wendy didn't respond. She turned back to the laptop. More emails loaded. Board meeting minutes showing how Vanessa had systematically stripped Marcus of authority. Legal documents transferring intellectual property rights. Patent filings under Cade Ventures' name for technology David Kong had developed. It was all there. The entire theft, documented in corporate language that made it sound legitimate. A bedroom door creaked. Wendy's hand flew to the laptop screen, angling it away from view. Emma stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Her pajamas, hand-me-downs from Claudia's kids, hung loose on her small frame. Mommy? Why are you still awake? Wendy forced brightness into her voice. Just finishing some paperwork, sweetie. Go back to bed. What kind of paperwork? Emma padded closer, her curiosity as natural as breathing. Wendy closed the laptop slightly. Boring adult stuff. Bills and things. Emma's face fell. She understood bills. She understood that bills meant mommy got stressed and the apartment got quiet and sometimes there wasn't money for field trips. Are we okay? Emma's voice was small. The question hit Wendy in the chest. 8 years old. She should be asking about dinosaurs and astronauts, not whether her family was financially stable. We're okay, Wendy said. She pulled Emma into a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of cheap shampoo. We're always okay. Promise. Ms. Hoffman said I need new shoes. I know. We'll get them this weekend. Wendy had no idea how she'd afford them, but that was a problem for tomorrow's version of herself. She tucked Emma back into bed, waiting until her daughter's breathing evened out again. Then she returned to the kitchen, to the laptop, to the impossible choice spreading across her screen. She could delete everything, pretend she never found it, go back to cleaning offices and stretching grocery budgets and pretending exhaustion was the same as fine. Or she could do something, report it, expose it, use it. The thought scared her more than the surveillance SUV had. Using it. What did that even mean? She didn't know lawyers, didn't know reporters, didn't know anyone who operated in worlds where $315 million was a number people actually dealt with. She took a screenshot of the most damning emails, saved them to a separate folder, created backups. Her old computer science training kicked in redundancy distribution protection. At 2:33 a.m., her laptop pinged. New email notification. The sender address was encrypted. Random characters. The subject line made her blood freeze. I know you accessed the server. We need to talk. Come alone. DK. Below the message was an address. A motel on the outskirts of San Jose. And a time? Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Wendy stared at the screen. David Kong. The missing CTO. Not missing. Hiding. And somehow, impossibly, he knew she'd found his insurance policy. Her hands shook as she closed the laptop. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. The walls closer. Every shadow in her apartment looked different now, like they might contain cameras or microphones or evidence that she'd stumbled into something far beyond her understanding. She thought about Emma sleeping in the next room, about the shoes they needed to buy, about the medical bills still unpaid from Emma's strep throat last month, about the future she'd promised her daughter, stable, safe, better than this. And she thought about that number, $315 million. Hidden, stolen, waiting. Wendy pulled the USB drive from her laptop and held it in her palm. It weighed nothing, but somehow it felt heavier than anything she'd ever carried. Tomorrow she had 2 cleaning jobs. Emma had school. Life would continue its exhausting routine. But at 8 p.m., she'd drive to that motel. She'd meet a man the tech world thought had vanished. She'd walk into something she didn't understand, carrying evidence of a crime she'd accidentally uncovered. Because maybe, just maybe, being invisible her whole life had been preparation for this. For being the one person powerful people wouldn't see coming until it was too late. The Starlight Motel looked like every bad decision Wendy had ever made. Neon flickered against cracked stucco. The parking lot held 3 cars, all older than hers. Room numbers hung crooked on doors that had seen better decades. Emma, 8 years old, attends Jefferson Elementary. David saw her expression and raised his hands. I'm sorry, but if I could find that information, so can Vanessa's people. So can whoever she sends to recover those files. The room felt smaller suddenly, claustrophobic. What do you want from me? David pulled a folder from beneath the bed. Inside were more documents, printed and highlighted. Help me expose her. The evidence you found, combined with my testimony, Marcus's story, we can prove what happened. But I need someone clean. Someone they won't expect. I'm a cleaning contractor with an 8th grade education and a daughter to protect. You solved a security system I built. You recognized what those files meant. David's intensity was overwhelming. You're smarter than you think. Smarter than they'll expect. Wendy's phone sat dead in her hand. Claudia would be wondering where she was. Emma would be asking when Mommy was coming home. I need to think. There's no time for, I need to think. Wendy opened the door. Don't contact me again. She walked to her van, forcing herself not to run. Her hands shook as she started the engine. In the rearview mirror, David stood in the doorway of room 117, a ghost watching her leave. The drive home took 20 minutes. Every car behind her looked suspicious. Every traffic light felt like an ambush waiting to happen. When she finally pulled into her apartment complex, she sat in the darkness for a long moment. The USB drive was still in her pocket. The evidence still existed. And somewhere in Silicon Valley, powerful people were looking for both. Wendy pulled out her phone to turn it back on. 3 missed calls from Claudia, 2 texts from her afternoon client about tomorrow's schedule, and 1 new email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line made her blood freeze. We should talk about your future. Opportunities for smart women like you. VK Vanessa Cade had found her. Wendy didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, reading Vanessa Cade's email over and over. The message was brief, professional, terrifying in its implications. Ms. Davidson, I understand you recently completed work at the former Nexus Dynamics facility. I'm always interested in connecting with talented individuals who demonstrate initiative and problem-solving skills. I'd like to discuss opportunities that might better utilize your capabilities. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Vanessa Cade, Managing Partner. Cade Ventures. No mention of the server. No accusation. Just an invitation wrapped in flattery. But Wendy understood the subtext. Vanessa knew. And this was the opening move. At 5:30 a.m., Wendy gave up on sleep. She made coffee, got Emma ready for school, and tried to act normal while her mind spiraled through worst-case scenarios. Emma chattered about a field trip to the Science Museum next month. $15 per student, permission slip required. Can I go, Mommy? Wendy looked at her daughter's hopeful face. $15. She'd have to skip lunch for 3 days to afford it. But she nodded. Of course you can go. Emma's smile made the exhaustion almost bearable. After drop-off, Wendy drove to her first job, a medical building in Sunnyvale. She cleaned mechanically, her body moving through familiar motions while her mind raced. Every person who passed in the hallway looked suspicious. Every car in the parking lot could be surveillance. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, another call. Same unknown number. Then a text. This is Jimmy. Got a new phone. You okay? You seemed weird yesterday. Relief flooded through her. She called back. Hey. Jimmy's Nigerian accent was warm, familiar. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing. I know nothing when I hear it. Wendy hesitated. Jimmy was the closest thing she had to a friend in the cleaning business. He'd helped her get half her contracts, taught her which property managers paid on time, warned her about clients who tried to short contractors. I might be in trouble. What kind of trouble? His voice sharpened. Someone not paying you? Because I know people who can. Not that kind. Wendy moved to an empty stairwell, away from the medical building's cameras. The abandoned tech office I cleaned yesterday. I found something. Equipment still running. Files that. Jimmy, I think I stumbled into something corporate. Something big. Silence on the other end. Then, you reported it to the property management? No. Wendy. I know. The files showed fraud. Real fraud. Hundreds of millions stolen. And now the people who did it, they know I found it. How do you know they know? Because the woman who orchestrated everything just emailed me about opportunities. Wendy's laugh was bitter. I'm a cleaning contractor, Jimmy. Nobody offers me opportunities unless they want something. Okay, don't panic. She could hear Jimmy thinking. You need to go to the police. And tell them what? That I illegally accessed a computer system and downloaded files? I'd be the one in trouble. Then delete everything. Walk away. I tried. I can't. The words surprised her. These people destroyed lives, Jimmy. And they're getting away with it because no one with power cares. Another pause. Where are you right now? Sunnyvale Medical Plaza. I'm coming. Don't move. Jimmy arrived 40 minutes later in his ancient Honda, wearing his cleaning uniform. He was a big man. 6'2", built like someone who'd done physical labor his whole life. But his expression was worried. They sat in her van. Wendy showed him the emails, the documentation, Vanessa's message. Jimmy read in silence, his jaw tightening. This is real. I know. These people have billions. I know. And you're. He gestured at her worn van, her tired face. No offense, but you're not exactly equipped for this fight. You think I don't know that? Wendy's voice cracked. I have Emma. I have 3 jobs. I have $47 in my checking account and a daughter who needs new shoes. Fighting billionaires isn't in my budget. Jimmy was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do? I don't know. David Kong, the CTO who supposedly disappeared, he found me. Wants me to help expose them. But that puts Emma at risk. Then there's this. She showed him Vanessa's email again. She's offering me a way out. Probably money. Definitely a threat disguised as opportunity. You thinking about taking it? Wendy closed her eyes. $2 million would change everything. Emma's future. College. Security. Everything I've been fighting for. But those files show Marcus Webb, the CEO, he lost everything. His company, his reputation, his life savings. David Kang's been hiding for 3 years, drinking himself to death in a motel. And Vanessa Cade is still out there, doing this to other people. Still winning. Jimmy reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. I have a cousin. Works security. Not like mall security, real security. Corporate stuff. Let me make some calls. See if anyone's actually following you. Jimmy, you don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was firm. You helped me when I first started. Remember? When that property manager tried to stiff me on payment. You're the one who told me about the lien process. Helped me file the paperwork. So yeah, I'm helping now. Over the next 2 days, Wendy's paranoia proved justified. Jimmy's cousin confirmed that a private security firm, Sentinel Solutions, ironically named, had been contracted to conduct surveillance. He couldn't get details on the target, but the timeline matched exactly with when Wendy had accessed the server. Then Emma's teacher pulled Wendy aside after school. Ms. Davidson, I wanted to mention something. Ms. Hoffman's expression was concerned. A man came by yesterday asking about Emma. Said he was with the district office, conducting routine family welfare checks. But we don't have anyone scheduled for that, and his credentials looked off. Wendy's blood went cold. What did he ask? About Emma's home situation. Whether she seemed well cared for. If you had stable employment. Ms. Hoffman touched Wendy's arm. I didn't tell him anything specific. Something felt wrong. but I thought you should know. That evening, Wendy received the suspicious job offer David had predicted. A tech consulting firm, one she'd never heard of, offering her a position as a technology liaison consultant for $175,000 annually. The job description was vague. The salary was absurd for someone with her background. The email signature included a phone number with a 650 area code, Silicon Valley. Jimmy ran the company name through his business school connections. The firm existed barely. Registered 3 months ago. No website. No presence. A shell company. It's a trap, Jimmy said. They were sitting in his car outside Wendy's apartment complex. Emma safely inside with Claudia. They're trying to either buy you off or gather evidence that you're willing to be bought off. Either way, they control the narrative. Wendy's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She answered this time, her hand shaking. Ms. Davidson? The voice was female, crisp, professional. This is Jennifer Chun from Cade Ventures. Ms. Cade asked me to reach out regarding her previous email. She'd very much like to meet with you. Perhaps lunch tomorrow. We can send a car. I'm working tomorrow. We'll compensate you for your time, of course. Shall we say noon? There's a lovely restaurant in Palo Alto that... I need to think about it. Of course. However, I should mention that Ms. Cade's schedule is quite full. This opportunity may not be available indefinitely. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Wendy hung up. Her hands were shaking badly now. She's closing in, Jimmy said quietly. Making you choose before you're ready. I know. That night, after Emma was asleep, Wendy received a certified letter. Hand-delivered by courier at 9 p.m. The envelope was heavy, expensive paper. Inside was a single page on Cade Ventures letterhead. Notice of intellectual property violation. Dear Ms. Davidson, it has come to our attention that you have unlawfully accessed and retained proprietary materials belonging to Cade Ventures and its subsidiary entities. This constitutes theft of trade secrets under California Penal Code Section 499C and Federal Law 18 U.S.C. Section 1832. You have 48 hours to return all materials and sign the attached confidentiality agreement. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action, including criminal prosecution and civil damages exceeding $10 million. We trust you will make the appropriate decision. The signature was Vanessa Cade's. Wendy read it 3 times. Her vision blurred. $10 million in damages. Criminal prosecution. Everything she'd feared, printed on expensive paper and delivered to her door. She called David on the burner phone. He answered immediately. They just made their move, didn't they? Legal threat. 48 hours. That's their playbook. Intimidate first, destroy second. David's voice was slurred slightly. He'd been drinking. What are you going to do? Wendy looked at Emma's school backpack by the door. At the stack of bills on her counter. At the life she'd built through sheer stubborn survival. I don't know, she whispered. I honestly don't know. But somewhere in the darkness of her exhausted mind, a thought was forming. Small at first, then growing. Vanessa Cade had billions and lawyers and power. She could crush Wendy without effort. Unless Wendy stopped being invisible. Unless she made herself too visible to quietly destroy. David, Wendy said slowly. That journalist you mentioned, Priya Mehta. Do you still have a way to contact her? On the other end of the line, David went very quiet. Then, you're sure? No. Wendy's voice was steady despite her fear. But I'm done running. And I'm done being invisible. Once we do this, there's no going back. Wendy thought about Emma asking if they were okay. About Marcus Webb's destroyed life. About David hiding in a motel. About Vanessa Cade's email offering opportunities to people she saw as beneath her. I know, Wendy said. Send the message. The message went out at 2:47 a.m. Wendy couldn't sleep anyway. She sat at her kitchen table, watching David compose an encrypted email to Priya Mehta through a series of anonymous servers. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision. Years of paranoia translating into operational security. I'm not identifying you yet, David said through the burner phone on speaker. Just enough to make her interested. Tech journalist gets a tip about corporate fraud worth hundreds of millions. She'll bite. And if she doesn't, she will. Priya's been chasing stories like this for years. This is her white whale. Wendy heard the ping of the sent message. Somewhere in the digital darkness, information was traveling toward a journalist who might help or might expose them before they were ready. Now what? Now we wait, and we bring Marcus in. David's voice tightened. I need you to talk to him. Why me? Because I'm the paranoid drunk living in a motel. You're the single mother just trying to survive. He'll listen to you. The video call connected at 7 a.m. after Wendy had dropped Emma at school. Marcus Webb appeared on screen, and Wendy understood immediately why David needed her help. The man looked hollowed out. His sister's basement, visible behind him, was cluttered with storage boxes and exercise equipment. Marcus wore a hardware store uniform shirt, his name tag crooked. His eyes were flat, defeated. David says you found the server. Marcus's voice carried no emotion. Congratulations. You found evidence of how thoroughly I failed. You didn't fail, Wendy said. You were robbed. I was an idiot who trusted the wrong person. There's a difference. Marcus rubbed his face. Look, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I fought this battle already. I lost. Vanessa has lawyers, connections, money. She destroyed my reputation so completely that I can't even get interviewed at startups anymore. I'm 34 years old and I stock shelves. I'm 34 and I clean toilets. Wendy's voice was sharper than she intended. We both know what it's like to be dismissed, but I found proof of what she did. Real proof. And I'm not walking away. You should. You have a daughter. You think Vanessa won't use that against you? She's already trying. Wendy pulled up the legal threat on her laptop, showed it to the camera. 48 hours to surrender everything or face criminal prosecution. 10 million in damages. Marcus's expression shifted slightly. Recognition. That's exactly what she sent me. Same letterhead. Same threats. When I tried to fight, she buried me in legal motions until I ran out of money for lawyers. So help us do it right this time. With what resources? David's hiding in a motel. You're a cleaning contractor. I'm stocking hammers and screwdrivers. We're not exactly a legal dream team. David's voice cut in through the phone speaker. We have the evidence. We have the truth. And we have nothing left to lose. I have my sister to lose, Marcus said quietly. When Vanessa came after me, she didn't stop with me. She went after everyone. My sister's business got audited 3 times in 6 months. Her mortgage application mysteriously stalled. Her kids' school received anonymous tips about our family. That's what happens when you fight people like Vanessa. Everyone you love becomes collateral damage. Wendy thought about Emma, about Claudia, about everyone whose lives intersected with hers. Then we make this public before she can do that. We expose her so completely that coming after our families would just prove we're telling the truth. Wendy surprised herself with the certainty in her voice. You built something revolutionary, something that could have helped people. Don't you want the truth known? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, someone called down the basement stairs. His sister, asking if he wanted breakfast. The domesticity of it, the ordinariness, made the contrast starker. What's your plan? Marcus finally asked. We contact Priya Mehta. Give her the full story with documentation. She publishes it, we file a lawsuit simultaneously, and we make ourselves too visible to quietly destroy. Wendy was making this up as she went, but it felt right. Vanessa's power comes from operating in shadows. We drag everything into light. She'll come after you hard. Criminal charges, civil suits, character assassination. She has a PR firm that specializes in destroying whistleblowers. I know. Your daughter will see you arrested, maybe taken away. I know that too. Wendy's voice cracked slightly. But what do I tell Emma when she's older? That I had evidence of theft and fraud and did nothing because I was scared? How do I teach her to stand up for what's right if I won't do it myself? Marcus's expression finally shifted. Something that might have been his old self, the idealistic founder who'd believed technology could change the world, flickered across his face. If we do this, we do it completely. No half measures. Everything documented, everything verified, everything public. His voice strengthened. And we guarantee our families are protected first. That's non-negotiable. Agreed, Wendy said. David's voice came through the phone. I can set up secure communication protocols. Dead drops for physical documents. Encrypted channels for digital files. But we need legal representation. Real lawyers, not public defenders. That costs money we don't have, Marcus said. Then we find someone who'll work pro bono or on contingency. Wendy was typing notes now, her old organizational skills from college emerging. David, you map out the technical evidence. Marcus, you document the timeline, everything from when you first met Vanessa to when it all collapsed. I'll compile the emails and financial records. And I'll contact Priya, David added, if she responds. The video call ended. Wendy sat alone in her van outside the medical building, her next cleaning job waiting. But for the first time in 8 years, she felt something other than exhausted. She felt purposeful. Her phone rang. Claudia. Wendy, what the hell is going on? Her sister's voice was tight with anger. I just had 2 men in suits show up at the hospital asking about you. About Emma. About whether you're a stable guardian. The fear crashed back immediately. What did you tell them? Nothing. I told them to talk to our lawyer, which we don't have, and they left. But Wendy, what did you do? I found something I wasn't supposed to find, and now I'm trying to do the right thing with it. The right thing? The right thing is protecting Emma. Claudia's voice rose. Whatever this is, walk away. Delete it. Forget it. Our family has been through enough. I can't. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You think some corporate scandal is worth risking Emma's safety? Wendy closed her eyes. It's not just corporate scandal, Claudia. There's hundreds of millions stolen. Lives destroyed. And if I walk away, they'll still come after me because I know too much. The only way out is through. Silence. Then, I'm taking Emma to stay with me, until this is resolved. Claudia, she's coming to stay with me, her sister repeated firmly. You want to fight your battle? Fine. But Emma stays safe. And when this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you. The call ended. Wendy sat in the silence of her van, the weight of what she'd set in motion settling onto her shoulders. Emma would be safe with Claudia. That's what mattered. Even if it meant her daughter would be confused, scared, asking when mommy was coming. Her burner phone pinged. David. Priya responded. She wants to meet. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., public location. She's interested. Wendy stared at the message. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours before she'd have to meet a journalist and trust that exposure would save her rather than destroy her. She started her van and drove to her cleaning job. The medical building needed her. Bills needed paying. Life continued even as everything changed. But in her pocket, the USB drive felt different now. Not like a burden. Like ammunition. Wendy never made it to the meeting with Priya Mehta. At 11 a.m., 2 hours before the scheduled cafe rendezvous, Agent Raymond Torres showed up at the medical building where she was cleaning. He waited in the lobby, his FBI credentials visible in his jacket pocket, making sure she saw him before approaching. Ms. Davidson, I need you to come with me for voluntary questioning. Voluntary. The word that meant she could refuse but would look guilty if she did. Jimmy was there within minutes of her text, but Torres was already leading her to an unmarked sedan. It's just conversation, the agent said. His voice was tired, not threatening. You're not under arrest. The FBI field office was in San Jose. Torres brought her to a windowless interview room that smelled like old coffee and fluorescent lighting. Another agent sat in the corner, observing, not participating. The camera in the ceiling blinked red. You accessed a computer system at the former Nexus Dynamics building 4 days ago. Torres laid photos on the table. Security footage of Wendy entering the building. Timestamps. Server logs. Want to tell me about that? Wendy's mouth went dry. I was cleaning. The property management hired me. And you just happened to find a hidden server room? Happened to bypass the security system? Happened to download proprietary files? Torres wasn't aggressive, just methodical. Like he'd done this 1,000 times. Ms. Davidson, I've been investigating Cade Ventures for 2 years. I know what's on that server. I know what Vanessa Cade did. And I know David Kong has been trying to find someone to help him prove it. I don't know what you're talking about. You met with David 3 nights ago. Starlight Motel, room 117. You were there for 43 minutes. Torres pulled out more photos. Wendy entering the motel. Her van in the parking lot. He gave you a burner phone. You've been in contact since. The observing agent made a note. Wendy's hands were shaking. David Kong is a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Any communication with him could be construed as obstruction. Torres leaned forward. But I don't think you're trying to obstruct justice. I think you stumbled into something you don't understand, and now you're scared. So let me help you understand. He pulled out a file. Inside were documents about Cade Ventures, lawsuits, settlements, patterns of behavior spanning years. Vanessa Cade has done this to at least 7 companies that we know of. She invests, gains board seats, manufactures crises, then acquires the companies for pennies on the dollar. The technology gets absorbed into her portfolio. The founders get destroyed, and she walks away richer. Then arrest her. With what evidence? She's careful. Everything looks legitimate on paper. Hostile takeovers happen every day in Silicon Valley. Without proof of deliberate fraud, proof that survives her legal team, we have nothing that sticks. Torres tapped the table. That server you accessed? That's the first real evidence we found. But the chain of custody is broken. David planted it. Any good lawyer would get it thrown out. So you want to use me too? Wendy's voice was bitter. Just like David. I want to do my job, which is stopping people like Vanessa Cade from destroying lives. Torres's expression softened slightly. But I'm also a realist. You accessed a computer system without authorization. That's a federal crime. You downloaded trade secrets. Another federal crime. Vanessa has already filed a complaint. The U.S. attorney is being pressured to prosecute. The other agent cleared his throat. Torres glanced at him, and some unspoken communication passed between them. My superiors want me to tell you to return the files and cooperate with Cade Ventures' investigation. They want this to go away quietly. Torres's voice dropped. But I'm telling you off the record that if you do that, you'll sign an NDA, Vanessa will pay you some money to disappear, and this cycle will continue. More companies destroyed. More lives ruined. You're asking me to be a witness. I'm asking you to think about what's right, and what happens if you don't. Torres stood. You're free to go. No charges. Yet. But Ms. Davidson, be careful who you trust. This isn't a game you can win by being brave. It's a game where people like you get crushed. The interview ended. Torres gave her his card. Nothing written on it. Just his number. His eyes held something that might have been sympathy or warning or both. Jimmy was waiting in the lobby. They drove in silence back to the medical building where Wendy's van sat untouched. It was 1:47 p.m. She'd missed the meeting with Priya. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from an unknown number. 1 voicemail. Ms. Davidson, this is Jennifer Chun from Cade Ventures. Ms. Cade is in the area and would like to meet with you. She's at your current location. Wendy looked up. Across the parking lot, leaning against a silver Mercedes, stood a woman in an immaculate charcoal suit. Even from a distance, Vanessa Cade radiated the kind of confidence that came from never losing. Drive away, Jimmy said immediately. Right now. Just drive. But Wendy was already getting out of the van. Some part of her needed to see this woman up close. Needed to understand what kind of person could destroy lives and sleep soundly. Vanessa smiled as Wendy approached. It was a warm smile, the kind that made you want to trust her. Ms. Davidson, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. What do you want? To help you. Vanessa gestured to a briefcase on the Mercedes hood. You're in an impossible situation. Federal agents asking questions. Legal threats from my firm. A daughter to protect. I'd like to simplify things. She opened the briefcase. Inside were documents and, beneath them, banded stacks of cash. $2 million. Tax-free, delivered however you prefer. In exchange, you return all copies of the files you accessed, sign a confidentiality agreement, and accept a consulting position with one of my portfolio companies. Meaningful work, good salary, benefits for Emma. Everyone wins. Wendy stared at the money. More than she'd earn in 20 years. Emma's college fund. A house. Security. Everything she'd been fighting for. Right there in a briefcase. You destroyed Marcus Webb's life. Marcus couldn't scale his vision. He was brilliant but naive about business realities. I tried to help him, but he fought every practical decision. Vanessa's voice was reasonable, almost kind. What happened to Nexus was unfortunate, but it was business, not personal. You stole his company. I acquired assets through legal means. There's a difference. Vanessa closed the briefcase slightly. You're a smart woman, Wendy. Smarter than people give you credit for. You have to understand Silicon Valley runs on acquisition. Technology transfers from those who can't execute to those who can. That's innovation. That's progress. That's theft. That's reality. Vanessa's smile cooled. And here's another reality. You can't win against me. I have lawyers who specialize in destroying people like you. I have connections in law enforcement, in media, in every institution that matters. If you try to fight, I will bury you. Emma will watch you get arrested. Child Protective Services will question whether you're fit to parent. Your sister's nursing license will face scrutiny. Everyone you love will suffer. She opened the briefcase again. The money sat there, tangible and real. Or you take this. You disappear. Emma gets the childhood she deserves. You never clean another toilet. You never wake up at 5 a.m. wondering how to pay for shoes. You win, Wendy. You actually win. Jimmy was calling her name from the van, telling her to walk away. But Wendy stood frozen, staring at 2 million reasons to surrender. I need to think about it. Of course. Vanessa pulled a card from her pocket. You have until midnight tonight. After that, the offer expires and the legal consequences begin. Choose wisely, Ms. Davidson. Choose for Emma. Vanessa got in the Mercedes and drove away, leaving Wendy standing in the parking lot with a business card in her hand and her entire future balanced on a decision she had hours to make. Her phone rang. Claudia. Emma's school just called. Someone tried to check her out early. Said they were your sister. Showed fake ID with my name. Claudia's voice was shaking with rage. They have people at her school, Wendy. They're threatening our baby. Wendy's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the van for support. Is she safe? The school caught it. Emma's fine. But I'm picking her up right now. And she's staying with me until you fix this. Whatever you got yourself into, you fix it. Or I'm calling a lawyer about custody. The call ended. Wendy stood in the afternoon sun, the parking lot spinning around her. Torres had warned her. David had warned her. Even Marcus had warned her. But she'd believed that righteousness mattered, that truth had power, that the system would protect people who did the right thing. She'd been wrong. Her phone pinged. A message from the burner. David, Priya still wants to meet. Tonight, 8 p.m. This is our shot. Below that, another message. Unknown number. The offer stands until midnight. VK 2 paths. 2 futures. And Emma, safe with Claudia but terrified, asking questions Wendy didn't know how to answer. She got in the van. Jimmy drove her home in silence. At 7:30 p.m., Wendy sat at her kitchen table. The USB drive on one side, Vanessa's business card on the other, and in the middle a photo of Emma, smiling, gap-toothed, holding a certificate for perfect attendance at school. Her phone showed 7:47. 13 minutes until she needed to leave to meet Priya. 13 minutes to decide between safety and principle, between Emma's future and everyone else's justice. Wendy picked up her phone and made a call. Wendy called David first. I'm not taking Vanessa's money. We're going public. Tonight. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. You're sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. Wendy looked at Emma's photo. Get Marcus. Get every piece of documentation ready. We have until midnight before Vanessa's offer expires and she comes after me with everything. Priya's meeting is at 8. I'll be there. But we're not doing this halfway. We coordinate everything. The article, the lawsuit, the evidence dump. All of it simultaneous. Make me too public to disappear. She hung up and called Jimmy. I need your help. The real kind. The kind that might get you in trouble. What do you need? Safe house for tonight. Somewhere Vanessa's people can't find me until the story breaks. Jimmy didn't hesitate. I know a place. My cousin's warehouse in Fremont. Nobody knows about it except family. Thank you. Wendy, you're doing the right thing. She wished she believed that. The cafe was crowded, intentionally. Priya Mehta sat in the back corner, laptop open, recording device visible on the table. She was younger than Wendy expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You're Wendy Davidson. And you're the journalist David contacted. Show me what you have. Wendy slid the USB drive across the table. Priya spent 40 minutes examining the files before she spoke. This is real. Her voice was steady, professional. Email chains showing premeditated fraud. Financial records proving the manufactured crisis. Technical documentation of stolen IP. She looked up. Do you understand what you're handing me? A target on my back. The story of the decade. Priya closed the laptop. But I need corroboration. Marcus Webb on record. David Kang's technical testimony. And I need to verify every claim before publication. How long? 48 hours minimum. I don't have that. Wendy explained Vanessa's midnight deadline, the legal threats, the attempted school checkout. Priya's expression hardened. Then we move faster. But Wendy, once this publishes, your life changes forever. Vanessa will come after you with everything. Criminal charges. Character assassination. They'll question your fitness as a mother. Wendy thought about Emma, safe with Claudia but scared. About Marcus Webb and David Kong. About 8 years of invisibility. I can handle it. Then let's do this. The next 48 hours blurred. Marcus recorded testimony. David provided forensic analysis. Priya verified every fact. Torres called at 2 a.m. Unofficially? If you go public, it forces our hand. Wednesday night, criminal charges were filed against Wendy. A warrant issued. Cade Ventures PR released their narrative. Disturbed woman, financial desperation, fabricated conspiracy. At dawn Thursday, Wendy walked into the FBI office with cameras rolling. At 6 a.m., Priya's article went live. The cleaning lady who uncovered Silicon Valley's biggest heist within hours. It was everywhere. Hashtag I stand with Wendy trended. The SEC announced an inquiry. Other victims came forward. But the cost was brutal. Wendy spent 72 hours in custody. CPS opened an investigation. Emma had to stay with Claudia. At the bail hearing, Torres testified despite his superior's fury. Bail was granted. Wendy walked out to camera flashes and Emma's confused face. Mommy? Why did they take you away? Wendy held her daughter, understanding the real price she'd paid. Not arrest or judgment, but Emma's fractured sense of safety. She'd won the battle, but everything that mattered felt lost. Torres called 3 days after Wendy's release with news that changed everything. We found something in the files you didn't see, buried deep in the encrypted folders. His voice was tight with controlled excitement. Vanessa didn't just steal from tech startups. She hit defense contractors, military AI systems. That makes this a national security case. Wendy was in Jimmy's warehouse, eating takeout and avoiding the media circus outside her apartment. What does that mean? It means federal prosecutors with real power. Immunity from political interference. The people protecting Vanessa can't touch this. Torres paused. It means we can actually win. Within 24 hours, everything shifted. Vanessa's legal team scrambled. Partners at Cade Ventures started turning on each other, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. The media narrative pivoted from he said, she said to legitimate federal investigation. State charges against Wendy were quietly dropped. The U.S. Attorney's Office issued a statement. Ongoing investigation, witness cooperation, no comment on specific individuals. But the damage to Wendy's life remained. CPS continued their investigation. Emma stayed with Claudia, attending court-mandated therapy sessions about the trauma of watching her mother arrested. Ms. Hoffman had filed the required report. She'd had no choice, but the institutional machinery, once started, ground slowly forward. Wendy attended family therapy twice a week. Sessions where Emma sat small and quiet, answering questions about whether she felt safe, whether mommy made good choices, whether home felt stable. Do you understand why your mom was arrested? The therapist asked during one session. Emma looked at Wendy, then back at the therapist. She found out bad people did bad things. And she told the truth even though it was scary. And how does that make you feel? Proud. Emma's voice was soft, but also scared. What if they take her away again? Wendy reached for her daughter's hand. I'm not going anywhere, baby. You promised before. Then they took you. The words cut deep. Promises meant less now. Trust had become conditional, fragile. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world crumbled. One of her former partners provided devastating testimony about systematic fraud spanning a decade. The SEC expanded their investigation. Criminal indictments were prepared. But there was a complication. The Nexus AI code, the technology at the center of everything, had legal ambiguity. Multiple companies claimed ownership. The government wanted it for defense applications. Marcus and David argued they were the rightful creators. A judge proposed an unusual solution. Establish a trust controlled by the original creators, with proceeds funding innovation grants for underserved communities. It would prevent corporate acquisition while recognizing Marcus and David's rights. And you'd be the community liaison, Marcus told Wendy over video call. Someone who understands what it's like to be locked out of opportunity. I'm a cleaning contractor facing a CPS investigation. I'm not qualified to. You're exactly qualified, David interrupted. You know what it's like to be dismissed, overlooked, told you don't belong in tech spaces. That's who this foundation should serve. The proposal was compelling but terrifying. It meant staying visible, staying involved, continuing to be a target. It meant Emma would grow up with a mother who was semi-famous for the worst reason. Priya published a follow-up article documenting the cascading effects of the exposure. Other Vanessa victims came forward. Venture capital firms implemented new oversight policies. The tech industry briefly pretended to care about accountability. Wendy returned to work cleaning, not because she needed the money anymore, foundation funding would provide salary, but because she needed normalcy. Her regular clients had dropped her, but new ones appeared. People who respected what she'd done, who treated her with unexpected dignity. One client, a small startup, offered her coffee in their break room. The CEO shook her hand. What you did took guts. Most people would have taken the money and run. Wendy thought about the $2 million in Vanessa's briefcase, about how close she'd come to accepting it. I almost did, but you didn't. That's what matters. Vanessa was indicted on multiple federal charges in early December. She posted bail, $5 million, barely a dent in her wealth, but faced serious prison time. Cade Ventures collapsed. Her reputation, carefully constructed over decades, disintegrated in weeks. Wendy watched the news coverage with mixed feelings. She'd wanted accountability, justice, truth. But watching another human being destroyed, even one who'd caused such harm, felt hollow. Vanessa had built her empire on ruthlessness, and ruthlessness was returning the favor. The judge approved the trust structure for the Nexus AI code. Marcus, David, and Wendy became co-trustees of technology worth hundreds of millions. It felt surreal, poverty to power overnight, but the money came with responsibility and continued scrutiny. Emma came home 3 weeks before Christmas. The CPS investigation concluded with mandated family therapy but no removal. Claudia drove her over, and Emma ran to Wendy with the desperation of someone who'd been separated too long. "I missed you, Mommy. I missed you too, baby. So much." That night, back in their apartment, Emma asked the question Wendy had been dreading. "Are we safe now?" Wendy thought about death threats still arriving, about Vanessa's trial approaching, about the foundation work ahead, about how justice was ongoing labor, not destination. "Safer," she said honestly. "Not perfect, but safer." "And you won't leave again?" "Not if I can help it." Emma nodded slowly, accepting the conditional promise because absolutes had proven unreliable. She was 8 years old and already understood that safety was something you worked toward, not something you achieved. They were learning to live in the aftermath. Learning that winning didn't mean returning to normal. It meant building something new from the pieces of what broke. 6 months later, Wendy stood at a podium facing 200 people at the Tech Accountability Summit. "I'm not a hero," she told them. "I'm a single mom who got lucky and stubborn in equal measure." Marcus sat in the front row beside his new partner, rebuilding his life. David was 3 months sober, mentoring young developers. Vanessa's trial had ended in April. 18 years federal prison, appeals pending. The Nexus Foundation had awarded its first grants. 50 community college students studying technology, full tuition plus living expenses. Wendy interviewed each applicant, recognizing her own interrupted dreams in their stories. Emma was thriving mostly, better school, science club, coding lessons on weekends. But nightmares still came. Trust rebuilt slowly, one kept promise at a time. After the conference, Wendy drove to their new apartment. Emma waited with a drawing. Their building, flowers on the balcony, 2 stick figures in a garden. "Can we plant real things?" "Yeah, sweetie, we can." That weekend they bought seeds. Marcus helped them choose varieties. On the balcony, they knelt in afternoon sun, filling pots with soil. How long until they grow? Couple weeks for sprouts, couple months for flowers. That's forever. Good things take time. Emma was quiet, then asked, "Are we still growing? From the bad stuff?" "Yeah, we are. Learning how to be okay again, like the seeds." That evening, Emma sat at Wendy's laptop learning basic HTML. Her small fingers typed, "Hello World," the classic first program, the beginning of every coder's journey. "What else can we make?" "Anything you want." When Wendy tucked Emma in, her daughter was already planning tomorrow's projects. "We could make a program that tracks our plants." "That's a great idea. Tomorrow we'll plant something new." Emma smiled and closed her eyes. Wendy returned to her kitchen table where textbooks waited, the degree she'd abandoned, within reach now. She could show Emma that interrupted dreams could resume, that being knocked down didn't mean staying down. The work of justice was never finished. But tonight they had enough. Tomorrow they'd plant something new. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.